remember looking around the car and being like, I don't belong here, right? Like, I don't connect with these people. Yes, they're my family, my parents, but there was nothing like innate about it. It was like throwing salt in a really, really open wound. The rejection and abandonment that already goes with the initial adoption.
There's something wrong going on. I don't belong here. I'm on my own. Those are the three turning points as a man we go through.
Are you going to take it as an opportunity to grow, or are you going to squander it and be the victim again?
You went through the trauma. You created a life. It wasn't serving you. It wasn't serving the people around you. You took responsibility. Hello and welcome to Inside Man with Gary Kadi. I am so excited. I love when we can get the power of example in our work, right? When we can really see what we've been talking about on the podcast week after week and actually bring it to life with a real badass. I got Andrew Schwartz with me today. What's up, Andrew?
Yo, what's going on, Gary? Thank you so much for having me on here. It is truly a pleasure to connect with you, in a new place, doing new things, talking about real stuff. So thank you for having me.
You bet. And, I've gotten to know you over some time now. And like one of the things I really admire about you is how raw and real you are. And for you to come on and share this with our tens and tens of listeners. No, we actually have 3,500 listeners in a matter of a few months. So I'm super stoked. Clearly, there's a lot of guys out there like us that were, chronic suffering and zero joy. And now we have this opportunity to have zero suffering and chronic joy. We'll grapple with life's problems, but we're not suffering inside of that, right? So we're going to unpack your journey. And I love the title that we came up with is Running to Belong When Numbing Fails and Worthiness Becomes the Work. I'm going to say that again. Running to Belong When Numbing Fails and Worthiness Becomes the Work. So, all right, give us a little overview. We need to know who the heck you are, Andrew. I know you're a rock star on all the circles that you go, but for here on the Inside Man, tell us a little bit about where you're from. Give us some background about yourself, and then we're going to get into what got you to here and earn the privilege, the honor for us to interview you.
Well, awesome. Thank you for the introduction, Gary. So my name is Andrew Schwartz. I am a financial professional in New York, like many thousands of guys here. So my job description is literally like any other guy in New York City, right? I grew up in Westchester, New York, northern Westchester, Yorktown Heights. I was adopted at birth. I have a brother who is 6 weeks older than me. We work together in the family business. I'm living in Brooklyn, New York now. A little bit about myself, hobbies. I like to run, snowboard, scuba dive, adventure, hike, travel, golf. I mean, my wife says I have way too many hobbies. This weekend I did a High Rocks, which is like a strength event in New York City. And I love hanging out with people and meeting new people and helping others. And that is who I am and what I do.
Well, that's a big one to unpack, but we're going to go really simple here. We're going to go right to your adoption. I want to go right there because I know like the early years, the formative years are really important in that a lot of beliefs get built at that point, a lot of structures, a lot of survival mechanisms. Let's talk about and unpack the adoption piece.
Yeah, for sure. So look, I was adopted at birth, and I remember my earliest memory, honestly, was driving with my family in our minivan we were living in the Bronx at the time, up to Westchester to see our new house. And like, I remember looking around the car and being like, I don't belong here, right? Like, I don't connect with these people. Yes, they're my family, my parents, but there was nothing like innate about it. And from that time, I like always felt out of place. Like in any classroom, I would like need the attention on me. I would like be somewhat of a victim in like anything that I was dealing with. So like in even like pre-K and like kindergarten, like I was always acting out and I was always the class clown and I needed outside validation because I never felt like I belonged. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So adoption was such a weird thing because like a lot of people that are adopted like find out later in life or their family never really told them until they could understand what that was. Being that my brother is adopted, my brother is from Santiago, Chile. I think I mentioned that, and his skin
Yeah.
complexion is completely different from mine. So
Huh.
we don't look like we're brothers and we're 6 weeks apart. So we grew up, and my parents did a fabulous job at explaining what adoption was and that we're brothers. And like, my parents had growing up a poem that was on our walls and it was like about adoption. And it started with like, not flesh of my flesh, not bone of my bone, but like forever you'll be my child, whatever, however that goes. Right. And so it was always explained that like, hey, like we are your parents and we love you and adore you. And, you're safe with us and we are going to grow as a family. And
Mm.
I think behavioral issues like started from the jump with me. Uh,
Yep.
and I was always like a curious kid, I like really always had questions and like wanted to know more. And, adoption is a beautiful experience. It really is. Like me and my wife often talk. We hope that we can adopt one day
Mm.
because I will have like the innate ability to understand my adopted child. And like that's
Yep.
something that we can bond together and hopefully grow together from. And, it's incredible. And, my whole life, I was almost like searching to fill a void. And, alcohol and drugs were easy to kind of fill that void when I finally got there. And like, my behavioral issues were solved with Ritalin and Adderall and Xanax. And it was like pouring fire on the gasoline for someone who like wants to self-sabotage, is never feeling like I'm enough in any situation. Like really, just acted poorly and had this victim mentality at all times. And, what was really cool is like my biological mom found me on Facebook right before I turned 21. And like she just wanted to know who I was, right? Like, when we met, her first reaction was like, I knew I'd see you again.
Ah.
How special is that? And like
Whew.
in my biological mom, Allie, like there was an innate connection there that I don't have with my parents. Not that my parents aren't incredible human beings that have literally dealt with everything, all the BS, the stolen money, the crash cars, the rehabs, the institutions. My parents are fantastic and I never wanted for anything in my life. But when I met my biological mom, there was this innate connection that I never had with my family. And
Mm.
it was really super special for me. And like my biological mom said, hey, I'm worried about your drinking and drug use, So like
Mm.
that was, I'm 21 and well aware of my demons at the time.
Yeah.
So for that to be one of her primary concerns was like, hey, there might be something to this. And like shortly thereafter, I found out that alcoholism runs rampant in my biological family. Like, almost virtually every family member is touched in some way with alcoholism and drug addictions. And like when my biological mom found me, she introduced me to my biological dad via Facebook Messenger. And this guy, he said, hey, Andrew, I'll be in New York in August. And this is, call it 2009 or something. In August, I was like home from Colorado. I was going to school in Denver and I was home. And I started like shooting this guy messages and calling him and like, hey, can we meet? Can we meet? Can we meet? And like the guy disappeared. He ghosted me.
Mm.
So not only, it was like almost, it was like throwing salt in a really, really open wound, right?
Mm.
Like, it was this like adoption thing. And then the rejection and abandonment that already goes with the initial adoption. that I had been like fueling with drugs and alcohol. And then like this guy reaches out, says, "Hey, I'll come back in your life," and then disappears again. And like, so my biological dad was the only thing I knew about him was he played in the NFL. So like I thought John Elway was my dad, or Troy Aikman, handsome blue eyes, blonde hair, like that's definitely him. And when I got sober, like I was able to, part of our journey is to clear the resentments of our past. And like, so this guy, I drank at him for years, not knowing I was drinking at him or drinking at the feelings of being reabandoned by someone that I never knew. But I was able to look him up when I was down traveling for business. And like, I looked this guy up and we had lunch, and it was the most underwhelming, cathartic experience of my life, which is like the paradox of a lifetime. But like I got to forgive a guy because, hey, he's just another dude trying to do the next right thing, who had like his own family and his own life, and like was scared to open up this whole Pandora's box of like another kid out there that like, quite frankly, he wanted nothing to do with anyway. So like, for me to come out of the woodwork and be like, "Hey, I want a relationship," like the way everything worked out, and to be able to forgive this man and say, "Hey, I understand that you're a human being and this was just fear-based. And like, whether we have a relationship or not is irrelevant. Like, I forgive you," was so profound in my life and my recovery. It was, like I said, just like underwhelming because it's just another dude. It wasn't Troy Aikman, it wasn't John Elway. But cathartic because I was able to clear that and like move on, and like that was so special for me. It was really cool.
Well, dude, you're a bowl of a bit too much, which I love because that's what my wife calls me. That was a lot in the first question. You just rocked us out. There's so much I want to pull out of this. The first thing I want to identify is for the men out there, there's 3 turning points that we all go through. The first one is there's something wrong going on here. So there's something, when I listened to your story, Andrew, it was like, there's something wrong going on. Early on, there was something wrong here. It's like, the second step is I don't belong here. And then the third step is I'm on my own. So those are the 3 turning points as a man we go through, right? So there's something wrong here was like, well, I don't, it was almost like a collapsed, I don't belong here, which is like, we're driving in the car with these people that, they're not my homies here, right? Like that was the first thing that you identified, right? Did I hear that right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And it's almost sad to say that because like my family never did anything wrong to like warrant those feelings. And
exactly.
What's tremendous is like there's such guilt associated with just having that feeling.
Yep.
That to be able to recognize that in myself and in that specific moment is powerful because like I can acknowledge that,
Yeah, and I want to identify this to unpack this like deeper on the inner roommate that comes on. We have this unevictable inner roommate chirping words to us, and then we think it's all real, but it's like us telling ourselves stories. So the first story, you told yourself there was like, there's something wrong here. I shouldn't be here. Like, and then we start believing that egoic mind that is really designed to keep us safe, I guess, but it turns on us at some point, right? And then the second thing is like, you don't belong here. Like you're not the color of your brother, like your parents are Jewish, right? And you're not, and right, you have all this stuff going on, right? Yeah. So it's like you talk about the like X factor of like, or the multiplication of like not belonging, like adoption is probably one of the most extreme versions of that, right? And you had to walk through that fire. And look, you could have looked at it one of 2 ways. You could go, well, I'm a victim to this, like you kept mentioning, or you were a gift to your mom, your biological dad. You're a gift to the Schwartzes who received you. And then there's you telling yourself stories inside all of this. And it's such a great thing to unpack here for guys. Because like whatever your story is, as you're listening to this, notice that it's step number 1 is something's wrong here. And by the way, where something's wrong here comes from is There's no meaning to language. And then you get old enough to put meaning on language. And then we make things mean things. And then we find coping mechanisms to fix those problems, right? Which you talked about, right?
And that was such, I mean, I love the way you just said that, right? Like, it's important to realize that our thoughts aren't reality, and like the perspective change that I've had over the years is like, dude, I'm the biggest gift and I'm almost the luckiest recipient of being the gift to other people, right? Like, in rehab, one of my closest friends now, Amy Durham, she said, look, you're going to be a gift to like let your family heal, right? Like you're going to be the catalyst to your family healing and on this journey. So that's, a profound perspective change for sure. Victim.
Yeah. And I'm sorry for interrupting. And you did that by staring down your demons. If you didn't stare those down, think about the forgiveness. I did the same thing with my dad. My dad used to beat the shit out of me physically and mentally. You get an A, you should have an A plus. You're a bad kid. I'm going to beat I was just curious, right? And back in the day, his dad beat him and then he beat me. And there was a time that I went through this program that we both went through, which is like, getting to the belly of why we were numbing ourselves out. And part of that is really making an amends for your responsibility. It doesn't mean that like what my dad did, I'm condoning. It just means that I had a role in it because we were both there. And my side of it was, and I was an alcoholic and I was going to take ownership of that. You know what happened? I think I told you a story. When I took ownership and went to my dad, and there was no way that I was going to apologize to my dad for anything because I drank over what I thought he did to me. And I just said, Dad, I'm sorry. It must have been scary for you to see me like surfing on a car's hood at 2:30 in the morning. You're looking out of the bedroom, seeing your son drunk off his ass, surfboarding on my friend's Monte Carlo's, back in the day, Monte Carlo's hood, on his hood. And that must have scared the crap out of you. And he said, son, he just started crying. He's like, son, thank you for saying that. And I accept that. And I want to take responsibility for how I fathered you. Like hitting you and mentally abusing you was something I regret every day. And I'm so sorry. And then my dad, got COVID and I had to walk him to heaven. And it was just brotherly love. And the impact of that, I'm sure you can attest, is like, you get connected to all people, including men or people that you hate, because those people that you hate are just reflecting the part of you that you don't like about you, right? So it's like you have all this stuff that just vanishes that has been like a source of stress. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, for sure, man. I think going through the process of owning my side of these situations was, and like continue to do it, right? Like I oftentimes outline relationships and look at what caused me to feel negatively about anything, right? So I had a girlfriend a few years ago and like I had to look at my side of the relationship. I like fell into this victim role in that relationship and like I had to really look at like, hey, I allowed this to happen. I didn't communicate my needs or like, what I wanted or envisioned or my expectations. And like because of that lack of communication, things fell apart. And like, to be able to realize like, hey, mom and dad, like not only do I own the crashing of cars, the stealing of money, the, crazy shit that they saw me do. But like I own my feelings that were associated with that and like why I did that, and all of that, gets you to a place of gratitude. And like gratitude is a muscle for me. And like I have it some days and I don't others. And like the only way I could get back to that is looking at my life at what relationships I need to clear up or make amends or figure out, or, what's going on in my life to help kind of relinquish that.
Yeah, and I think you're now on to the ultimate solution, but there was a period of time in between there that I want to unpack. Starting with, you'd mentioned, I think you're Ritalin, and you had a near-death experience. Like, talk about those like early years of like, think about it now. What first thing we unpacked is our perspective. We make things mean things, and then people are doing it to us, right? And then we find coping mechanisms, good looking guy, dresses well, smart, successful. And then, there's some other things that we look into, like we talked about Ritalin and alcoholism.
Yeah.
Talk about, I want you to get us in, because we all get in our heads, and then talk to us about the inner roommate, and then like the release, the things that you did to relieve yourself of the pain that you were enduring.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, we'll start at like, I guess, age 14, which is when I was diagnosed with ADHD, right? Like I had behavioral stuff. I was getting in fights in school. I was getting kicked out of class. I like dropped the C word at a math teacher. I like took a fire extinguisher and sprayed it at a math teacher. Like not good stuff. They sent me off, and like my first prescription was Ritalin. My second prescription was Lyme, right? So like the second I got Ritalin, I had this like moment of like, oh my God, I am superhuman. I can crush up this little pill and I have endless runway to do whatever I want, right? And then like almost the second that went into my body, I realized I could lie to anyone and no one has any idea what the truth is. So I went back to my doctor and I was like, yo, this Ritalin stuff is great, but now I have anxiety. Like I need something to help manage that. And he was like, okay, well, here's Valium. And like, so I'm 14 years old with Valium and Ritalin and like speedballing and sniffing it all. And like, my mom found like a little straw when I was like 14, and she like held it down and like held on to it as leverage to like tell my dad, right? If something went sideways. So like my first coping mechanism was drugs, right? Powerful amphetamines and barbiturates, and then lying, dude. And like lying was so powerful for me because the cigarettes that my parents found on me weren't mine. The booze the parents found on me wasn't mine. It was all a girlfriend's of friends, whatever that was. Where were you? Oh, I was at the gym. No, I was really smoking weed with my friends. Lying became like the antidote for anything, right? And from there, like I started boozing pretty hard. I was on the football team. I got my first fake ID when I was 14 on McDougal Street, Manhattan. And I thought that like I was the cool guy. I was buying like kegs, and like I had found my identity in providing alcohol and drugs to other people, and like deep inside, you said the inside man, like my feelings at the time were that I wasn't enough and I didn't care. So like I wasn't enough. I wasn't a good enough athlete. I wasn't a good enough student. I wasn't a good enough kid. I like wasn't suicidal, but like I didn't care if I lived or died. And I was going to go big for the story. So like I was going to have the biggest party. I was going to cause the most trouble. I was going to, like that manifested in like so many different ways. I've gotten in probably 15 or 20 car accidents, all under the influence. I've had a couple near-death experiences. Like, I totaled my dad's Audi A8 wrapped around a telephone pole on Thanksgiving Eve, blackout drunk, and the doors wouldn't open. So I like hopped out of the sunroof and like crossed live wires to like get out, right? So like all of the carnage is what I call that stuff. But like I didn't care. I really didn't. I thought I was gonna die. And like my latest coping mechanism was painkillers, opiates, man. And like that took me to my knees. And like for 10 years, it was, can I get enough money to get enough pain meds to make me numb out so I don't have to feel that my life is a living hell. And it was like Groundhog's Day every day I was working on Wall Street for AIG, and I would go into the office, sniffing Ritalin, staying high all day on that stuff. And then like the second I got out, I'm looking for painkillers, and having to like, rob, cheat, steal, whatever to get those painkillers. And like, look, to the point that I robbed a drug dealer in college. And
Jesus.
I walked out of his house with a pound of weed under one hand and a bag of pills in the other, like Oxycontins. And we're in Boulder, Colorado, in the middle of the street. And he pulls a gun on me, and he's like pointing at my head. And I'm like, "You won't fucking shoot me." And I get in my car and I drive away. And like, it was reckless, dude. This is like always something crazy going on. And
oh my God.
I wasn't always a high performer athlete. Like I wasn't always good looking. Like I weighed 300 pounds when I got sober. Like I was not healthy, man. And the numbing for 12 years on the couch, like I wasn't a good version of myself.
Yeah. And, I want to go back to a turning point. I love finding turning points because once you identify them, they don't have you anymore. You just happen to have a series of circumstances that happened in life. And all the way back to 14 with the fake ID, buying kegs and feeling like the man. Like you found a coping mechanism to belong and be validated. All we want. And this is good for, now is your wife pregnant?
Yes. Yeah. 26 weeks today.
Congratulations. Now, what I love is like we're piecing together the future of how you transformed your life, and we keep bringing it up. But as a parent, understanding that all kids want is to be validated and have love, right? And that's really what happened for you. Like you made this story up. Something was really wrong here. You placed meaning on it. I don't belong. Your inner voice is telling you that story. And then we find ways. For me, it was working and making money. For you, it was fake ID and being the man, getting the booze. Like you're the go-to guy. So everybody had to go through you, right? So that was like a validating point, right?
And I think honestly, almost the biggest validating point was like having the story, dude. I like would do crazy shit to have a crazy story.
Yep.
And like I wanted to be known as like the Project X kid, like the guy who like went bigger than anybody and like was gonna die doing it. It was really that. Because that was the only way I could impress people was like the wow factor of that guy's a nut.
Exactly. And so you found like we create these personas, like I am the go-to guy for extreme everything.
Right.
And you come through me. And that gave you security and comfort. And it works until it doesn't work. Then what happens is life progresses, you get older, then all of a sudden you get in the world, you have responsibilities, and it doesn't so much work. You try to channel it. And let's talk. You're on Wall Street, you move on. Now you're at AIG, you're cranking out shit, and your workaholism and drugholism, basically, and alcoholism, and that's basically your story. And how long did you live inside of that? You gained up to 300 pounds. You're in great shape now, but it's like, paint that picture for us. How long was that? From what years to what years?
So I started my career in Wall Street in 2012, and 2016 is when I went to rehab, right? So there were 5 years in there, call it that. I almost call like no man's land, right? I was like doing well enough that no one was like really knew that something was wrong. But I hated myself. Like internally, I just like looked at myself with such disgust. And I didn't know that there was another way. I like really honestly, and like my dad was like, yo, I put an AA book like on your nightstand, right? Like I put this stuff, like there was another way. Like, how could you not have known? And I'm like, look, dude, I was stuck in it, man. I was trying to find the next fix, and like, and I was dating amazing women that were my hostages, right? I had this girlfriend, Liz, who like from 2012 to 2015 was like my backbone. She like helped it kind of show that I was like doing well enough. Our relationship was progressing. Financially, I was doing well. But it was like you said, like it was a mask, right? It was an absolute persona that I had to hide the inner turmoil of self-hate, self-loathing, of like all of this stuff that I really, really hated about myself. And it was a really difficult time in my life because it was like not excelling, but not bad enough that people would know.
Yeah, like when the pain of the present is not great enough to make the change, that is the stall, brother. That's
Yeah,
the
you nailed
stall.
it.
And then there's enablements in there. Like you find this gal who's going to carry you 4 years. You're going to be successful at work enough so nobody's going to find out. So it's like we stay in this pain, and where the pain comes from, you'd mentioned a few times, I want to highlight it here, shame and guilt. Shame and guilt are the drivers that when you're in your quiet times, you can't be quiet. Your brain is like spinning because it's holding on to all this stuff that doesn't get completed, right? And then like, I don't know about you, but like for me, it was like I was a workaholic till 5 p.m. And if I drank before 5 p.m., I was an alcoholic. So I would at 5:01, brother, that was my thing. I'd be cracking a bottle of wine, man, hitting a bar on the way home or whatever I would do. But it would be like workaholism, alcoholism, and then there was autism. And when there's a circumstance that's bigger than first, shame and guilt and my own addiction was like isolated to me. At least I thought. I didn't know it had such an impact on others. But let's take a look. The minute there's an impact on someone else, like your wife or your son, there's like this all of a sudden phenomenon that like staying the same no longer becomes an option, and change is mandatory at some point. So let's talk about that moment when you went to, like, how did you get to rehab? What was that turning point? When did you know the gig was up and you had to make a change?
Yeah. So one of my dear friends, Johnny O. So 2015, 2016 was when like the first wave of overdoses hit, New York, right? So, we're talking about opiates, strong opiates, heroin hitting the streets. And like my buddy Johnny O got 90 days and went out and like used one time and overdosed and died. And like that was the first time that it was like close enough to home that like I felt it. I was like, yo, I was using with Johnny O like last month, right? This could be problematic in my life. And like when he died, I went on a spiral and I broke up with Liz and like went to New Orleans on a bender and drank and drugged the way I wanted to drink and drug for 3 days. And dude, I made phone calls I don't remember. I said things I don't remember. I lost my phone, my wallet, my car keys in New Orleans, missed like 3 flights coming back. And at the time I was working with my dad and my brother, and like my brother picked me up at the airport at like, 4 p.m. when I was supposed to be in at 9 a.m. and like dropped off a spare set of keys because I didn't have my car keys on me. And I saw him and I just started crying. And I was like, he was like, get the fuck out of here. You're a mess. Like, you're an absolute mess. And I went into the office the next day like I normally would, my best suit, looking the part. And my dad and my brother like pulled me aside and like, let's go get breakfast. And they're like, we think you should go get help. And I literally looked at them and I said, what the fuck took you so long? Like, what took so long?
Mm.
And it was like that brief moment of clarity that I was like, hey, my life isn't getting better. I'm stagnant and I hate myself and something needs to change. And that was Monday morning. And by Wednesday, I was at rehab in Pennsylvania. And it was a journey, man. I didn't realize how much I had to unpack. I didn't realize how much trauma I had in my life. I didn't realize like the level of guilt, shame, and like self-hatred that I actually had. And
Mhm.
like, quite frankly, I didn't want to. Like, when you're coming off the powerful drugs that I was coming off of, and we're talking about, call it 14, 12 years of Adderall, Xanax, pot, booze, opiates. I love hallucinogens. So, like, DMT, LSD, mushrooms, whatever I could get my hands on. So, coming off of 10, 12 years of doing all of that, there's like, your mind doesn't know what the hell to do, and there's nothing there. So
Mhm.
like I tried to leave rehab on, a couple of days after I got there. And this guy Damien sat me down and he's like, yo, Andrew, you have 30 days here for the rest of your life. You have like 30 days to figure out why you do the things you do, why you drink the way you drink, why you drug the way you drug. Are you going to take it as an opportunity to grow, or are you going to squander it and be the victim again? Right? Like, what are you going to do? And I started taking suggestions, man, and like day by day, like piecing this thing together and figuring it out, and still like literally 300 pounds. And like at that time, you're in rehab, I was like feeding my feelings with like actual food and overeating and nicotine and like, worried about what everybody else was thinking on the outside. And dude, good orderly direction got me to where I am today.
Congratulations. It's a big deal, brother. You're such an inspiration and power of example of like, no matter how far down the scale you've gone, you're now coming out and creating a life for yourself. Could you share with us, like, you went through all that work, and we should probably do another episode on the specifics around the work if you'd be open to it. I'd love to have you back for
Yeah, for sure,
sure.
man. Definitely.
I think it's important to, take the whole journey with you. Where, I just want to highlight one more thing inside of this story so far. One of the things that I've learned over the years is there's either love or a call for love. Where either there's love present or there's a call for love, and we're a call for love, but we don't know how to ask for help, right? And so it's like, we demonstrate that we're in pain, and we hope somebody comes and like sees us and says, hey, step in there. So, and your brother and your father were being loving there when they stood for you, and came in and intervened, and took you down the road to Karen, which is one of my favorite places on the planet. It wasn't when I was first there, but as you would agree, it's the beginning of the beginning. It really is the beginning of the beginning. And paint the picture now for what your life is like. One of the things that you did was you did some healing things like the Speed Project, and the Release Recovery Foundation. Like, talk a little bit about your trip from LA to Vegas, and some of the things that you took on.
Yeah, man. So look, for me, recovery is like mind, body, and soul. And like, what am I doing to nurture all three aspects of my life? Right. So, a lot of it comes down to like love and service, like kind of what you touched on. And so, my friend Zach Clark started the Release Recovery Foundation a few years ago, and it has been remarkable to be a part of a foundation that all we do is raise money to help alcoholics and drug addicts get treatment. So I'm a part of the admissions committee that basically goes through the profiles of people applying for scholarships and to be able to get those people, to get care. So that service is super helpful in my life. Movement is medicine for me, man. I was 300 pounds and I ran my first half marathon. And I learned then that like I needed to push the limits in order to like stay healthy and like keep pushing the goals, right? So my first marathon, Zach told me like, hey, you're running the marathon. And this is 2018. And I ran like, it was literally like almost 6 hours. Like it was crazy. And from then I like year after year improved my time, got better, started doing strength stuff. And like I met my wife in 2022 at the Boston Marathon. I ran a 3:45, which was like almost faster than my first half marathon, which is wild to think about. But there I met like this incredible woman, and like Molly is like an actual rock star. Like I'm like okay on paper, but like Molly makes me want to be a better human. She's built an amazing company. She like she's a 3:15 marathoner. She's physically beautiful and like cares about the people around her. And so we hit it off in 2022 and like since then our relationship has blossomed and yes, we're like married, we have a kid on the way. We're moving to North Carolina in a couple weeks, which is all a lot of stuff that we could unpack, but she made me believe in myself. And like she gave me the support and nurturing kindness that I needed that like I could bite off anything and build anything and create anything. And like one of my early creations was like the speed project. So for Release Recovery Foundation, I got a grant from this guy, Jeff Baum, who's like, hey, I'll fund this, but in order for that to happen, you have to double the money that we gave you to do the Speed Project. And like Speed Project is a 340-mile run from Los Angeles to Las Vegas through Death Valley. And there are 6 people on the team. And like I recruited the teammates. I like got together all of the stuff that you need to pull this thing off, the RV, the SUV to help shuttle runners, the team of rock stars. We like, and like I have found recently that like I get to this point and like I want to throw everything all away. I have like this self-sabotage point. I'll get like 80% of the way done with something and like I want to throw it away. And like I got 80% of the way done with putting together a speed project and Molly's like, no, we have to keep going. And like, dude, when I tell you that this race from LA to Vegas soothed my soul and made me realize that like I can literally do anything, it was the beginning of the beginning, right? Part 2, you know? So that was part 1 and that was part 2. And since then, it's just been like, dude, game over, hitting goals and doing things. And it's been high performance and high octane and it's so much fun.
Yeah, congratulations, brother. You're such a power of example. And the thing I love is, I had a little nuanced about what you spoke about Molly because I have Judith, and I thought she brought wholeness to me, but she was my partner that allowed me to create wholeness for myself. And one of the things that I've learned is like only you can give these things as an inside man to yourself. Now, people around you can stand for, in my conversation with Judith 2 weeks ago, it was like she was not standing for mediocrity. She was standing for extraordinary living. And when you raise the bar, when you have a partner who raised the bar like Molly did for you, it's like you have a choice to step into it or not step into it. And what I really love about you and admire about you really deeply is you went through the trauma, you created a life. It was all over the place. It wasn't serving you. It wasn't serving the people around you. You took responsibility, Andrew, and now you're creating a life that's going to allow your family tree to have a sober dad at the helm of it, a sober husband, and you're going into it like channeling that incredible energy that you had as a kid, that to be that extraordinary, gregarious, big playing guy into goodness, into service, so you're the perfect example as an inside man, because you can see if you didn't go inside yourself and do the work, you could not have stood there when you took on Release Recovery and when Molly showed up. Like your worthiness of self could have not accepted the partnership with Molly if you didn't do that healing on the inside. Would you agree to that?
Yeah, man. I think, well, first of all, great insight. Like, are you a therapist or what?
No, just an inside man sharing inside man shit, man. That's it.
I mean, seriously. So I've never looked at it that introspectively. And I think like, yes, right? Like to be able to receive that is such a gift. And like, look, it doesn't come naturally for me to receive anything good. Like you could ask Molly, like, I don't like celebrating my wins. I just don't, right? Like I'd rather like keep it moving because it's uncomfortable for me to feel the worthiness that like I did this or like I accept the successes, right? But yeah, man, very well said that like I was able to receive Molly and the support and kindness and loving belief. And like, dude, my parents and my father-in-law and like everybody's there to support. And like now I'm a better person because I'm able to take a step back and receive the love that I wasn't able to receive for so long. And like it's true, man. You can't love other people until you love yourself. And it's really amazing to be able to do this. Like seriously, dude, I didn't think that it was gonna happen, and here we are.
Dude, I was going to ask you, what last words do you want to leave our viewers with? And it's like, I think I want to highlight the one that you just gave us. That, you can't love others until you love yourself. And we both hated ourselves to the nth degree. And then to transform that into love is incredible. So I'll leave you, I'll give you a space here to like anything you want to deepen that, or anything else you want to say to be complete here today.
I mean, I think like what I'll leave on the table is like gratitude and service, right? Like when I wake up in the morning and I'm having like and I'm in a bad mood, like I have to set my life up and like reset my brain and mindset to be like, yo, you got to be grateful that you woke up today, that your body hurts from whatever it's hurting from. Like grateful that I woke up next to a partner who loves me and supports me. I'm grateful for like this life that I've built. And like the last thing I'll say is that like you could always be of service. And like that could just mean calling your mom right now or calling grandma right now or like checking in on someone you haven't spoken to in a minute or like as simple as like holding a door, right? Like the simple actions of service for me that I'm able to see in life today, not just in recovery, is love in my life. That's how I'm able to give back.
You're an extraordinary human being, my man, Andrew. You're so generous and incredible in your sharing. And I just want to thank you on behalf of the listeners. Thank you for being here with us today. You're an extraordinary man, and I adore you and I love you.
I love you too, man. Thank you so much for having me. I love what you're doing here. Let's keep it going.
All right, brother. I'm going to have you back. So after you move, I'll let you move and then we'll come back on.
Yeah, let this season of chaos end for a little bit and then let's do it.
Sounds Lots good, of love to you all. Leave a comment, like us, share us. Inside Man with GK, Andrew Schwartz. We'll see you when to see you.
Peace.
Thanks, brother.
Yo, that was awesome. Thank you so much.
Oh, it was incredible.